Okay, now this is a bit of work inside the guts of my bargain basement snap-on 130 SnapMig 130 turbo, which is a Cerbera 130 pocket MIG. Anyway, I basically bought it as a spares or repair, and two things were evident: that the trigger didn't work properly, and also the wire feed was completely butchered. Now, what had happened is the mounting of this part of the feed mechanism had snapped, and the plastic bit, which is normally here, and there's the pivot and there's the roller, that had also snapped off. So it was pretty much irretrievable. So what I decided to do was go to Screwfix and get myself some little metal brackets for £1. Pot riveted one of those down there, making sure that there was nothing important on the other side, so I wasn't going to take the drill through the windings, and also to make sure that no bits of metal fell into the electrical side of the welder. So that was fastened there, and had a piece of aluminium. You could go to metal supermarkets and buy a little length of it, but this just happened to be some shelf support. Drilled it through, and on the inside there is a flat-headed bolts. These are 4mm bolts. Again, you can buy from Screwfix or Toolstation, and you can snap them off to length. But those two are in there. No need for washers because the heads are just big enough to fit down inside there here. No contact whatsoever with the roller. A couple of nuts in place and along. Drill it through horizontally and connect it through to the clamping mechanism. Now the spring and there are the old ones. That's a piece of 4mm rod, again from Toolstation or Screwfix. And remember, it's not reliant on actually having to be physically closed. There's always that compression spring there. So again, if you push that too hard, you'll end up snapping it off at the pivot point there. But that's fully operational. Checked it. Just left this nose in place. I guess it just lines up the wire to feed into the rollers. And the second thing that was wrong was the drum, the cap, the retaining cap, had been snapped off. So basically trimmed back the existing plastic, and fortunately a piece of 8mm rodding will fit into the bottom of that and refuse, so it will actually tighten up into it. So just trim that off inside. There's a standard 30mm head, 8mm nut, and the original spring from the clamping from the drum retainer. That needs to have some sort of drag so the spool doesn't just go whiz 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 when you start welding. Okay, and finally the torch didn't work properly. So if you take those two screws off there, wee little ones like this, and then you pull this piece of the torch this way, because it actually goes between the torch and the plastic surround. So that pulls out, and you're left with this brass affair here. And what that does is it switches the power on, but it also activates the argon CO2 feed, the gas feed. So if you take the little cover plate off there, see? Inside that cover plate is a little contact that was black. What happens is when the arc gets struck, there's a tiny little spark between any high point on either this bit or alternatively the other side of the trigger. Okay, now that's in there with that spring. So you push it out from this side, and again clean off that end so it's nice and shiny. Okay, be careful you don't clean too much off or damage that sealing mechanism there, because that does need to be gas tight. So there we go. So you stick that back in with the spring. Excuse me if I go out of focus slightly. Oh, glad I'm not a Unidexter. Hang on, let's go for it. There we go. So that fits in there with the spring. Bish bash bosh. Now the cover goes in there again with an O-ring, make sure that O-ring's in place because that's the other part of the gas tight fit. Okay, so anyway, fit that in, and there's a little actually there isn't a lock washer on this, it's just held in push tight because the screw there retains the contact on the gas side. Okay, so just check that that's nice and clean, and that should fit in there, pushes in, and when you actually put it into the body of the torch, it's constrained by the top and bottom of the moulding here. Sorry, that's probably out of focus. That might be sharper now. Yeah, as it goes in there, it's actually constrained by the moulding, so it doesn't actually physically need to be secured in. But again, just check that's nice and clean because that's your gas tight seal. And that's basically it. All I've got to do now is find myself a pot rivet spot welding gun. I think I'll probably make one out of this shroud here, and also some tips, because the tips are slightly bigger than my existing project welder, which is a shame, but I'm sure I'll find some use for them. Try and just get one of the existing tips out, or not. God almighty. Anyway, standard tips are too small, so it's a cerbera fitting, that screw fit in there, and the nozzle is push fit. I will report back if I find out any more about it. Ta-da.